The courtyard was silent. Only the whisper of wind moved across the stone steps of Jerusalem. And there, a king sat alone, hands trembling, eyes staring not at the throne before him, but at the shadow that crept across the sundial. Because that shadow was the measure of his life. Hezekiah, the king who had seen death written in prophecy, the man told he would not rise again, and yet he dared to argue with God. Why would a dying man speak to heaven? Because something inside him whispered, "It isn't over." He turned his face to the wall and wept, not the weeping of weakness, but of a man who still believed he had purpose. And then the silence broke. A voice, distant yet near, "I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears." 15 more years. Just like that, the sentence was rewritten. But here's the question that no one could answer. How do you prove that a miracle has spoken? Hezekiah asked for a sign, something visible, something impossible. And that's where the story turns. The prophet Isaiah stood beside him, calm, unshaken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 steps or backward 10 steps? Hezekiah didn't hesitate. Backward, he said, because time never moves backward. The question hung in the air like a dare to the universe. Can the sun itself be told to turn around? And then it happened. The shadow paused. The air thickened, and slowly, impossibly, the darkness slid backward along the stones. 10 steps, 10 breaths defying eternity. But why? Why would the God of heaven bend the clock of creation for one man's plea? Maybe because faith itself can tilt the universe. Maybe because belief isn't about knowing the outcome, it's about standing in its path. The city below didn't notice at first. Children played, traders shouted. But somewhere, a watchman on the wall looked at the sky and saw daylight rewinding. He called out, voice shaking. Others gathered, watching the sun's light crawl the wrong way. Was it an omen? A warning? A blessing? No one could agree, but they all remembered one name, Hezekiah. That night, the king walked through the palace halls, alive yet burdened. Because when the impossible touches you, peace doesn't come easily. If time itself obeyed his prayer, what would it demand in return? And that's the question that haunted him. Miracles are not free, they ask something back. Hezekiah's health returned, his strength grew, but so did his pride. He showed foreign envoys his treasures, gold, silver, incense, and the sacred vessels of the temple. And with every word, the shadow crept forward again. Because what God reverses, man often restores. Isaiah returned once more, the same quiet calm. "What did they see in your house?" he asked. Hezekiah hesitated. "Everything," he said. Then came the words that froze his heart. "The days are coming when all you have will be carried away." The shadow that once retreated would someday fall again. And yet, even in that warning, there was mercy. Hezekiah bowed his head. "The word of the Lord is good," he whispered, because he finally understood something deeper than time. A miracle isn't proof, it's an invitation to live differently. Years later, when the king was gone, people still spoke of the day the sun reversed. Children asked if it was true. Old men swore they'd seen it with their own eyes. But no one truly understood what it meant. Maybe it wasn't about the sun at all. Maybe it was about a man who learned that faith could bend what fear cannot. Maybe the shadow didn't move backward to prove power, but to show that even when time runs out, grace can still rewrite the ending. And if the shadow of your own life ever grows long, if it seems too late, too dark, too final, remember this king who spoke to a shadow and watched the light return. Because sometimes the greatest miracles aren't in what God changes around you, but in what he restores within you.